Picture this. It's the late 1600s. You are walking through the prestigious halls of Cambridge University. You pass the room of a man who is arguably the smartest human being who has ever lived. We all know the story, right? The apple falls from the tree, hits him on the head, and eureka, he discovers gravity. We are taught that he is the father of modern science, the man who banished superstition and brought the light of reason to the world. But if you could open the door to his private chambers and look inside, you wouldn't find a rational scientist doing math homework. You would find a man standing over a blazing furnace, inhaling toxic mercury fumes, obsessed with ancient magic. We think of Isaac Newton as the first great scientist. But the truth is, he was actually the last of the great magicians. While the world praised him for his physics, Newton was living a double life. He spent decades hunting for the legendary philosopher's stone and trying to decode the end of the world from the Bible. In fact, he wrote over 1 million words on alchemy. That is a massive secret archive that history books convenient forgot to mention for centuries. Today we are going to blow the dust off those journals. We are going to meet the real Isaac Newton. Not the boring statue in a museum, but the obsessive, secretive sorcerer who believed that gravity wasn't just math. It was the breath of God. To understand why this is so shocking, we have to look at who Newton was to the public. By the early 1700s, he wasn't just a celebrity, he was the president of the Royal Society, the most prestigious scientific organization in the world. He was the gold standard for logic. But Newton was keeping secrets that could have cost him everything. First, there was his religion. On the surface, he was a devout Christian. But in private, Newton was what historians call an anti-Trinitarian. He completely rejected the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is the core doctrine of the Church. In the 17th century, you didn't just tweet about that kind of thing. That was heresy. If the authorities found out, he wouldn't just lose his job, he could be ruined. So he learned to keep his mouth shut and his door locked. And behind that locked door, his mind was wandering down paths that modern scientists would call pseudoscience. You see, we make a mistake when we look at history. We draw a sharp line between science and magic. We put chemistry on one side and alchemy on the other. But for Isaac Newton, that line didn't exist. He didn't see a gulf between religion and science. For him, the universe was a cryptogram set by the Almighty, and he was the code breaker. Whether he was calculating the orbit of a planet or trying to turn lead into gold, he was doing the exact same thing, trying to read the mind of God. And nothing consumed him more than the ancient art of alchemy. Now, when you hear alchemy, you probably think of wizards in robes trying to get rich quick by making gold. And sure, Newton was interested in transmutation, changing one metal into another. But he wasn't doing it for the money. He was doing it because he believed alchemy held the secret to life itself. Here's where it gets really strange. Newton had this theory called the vegetable spirit. It sounds like a bad band name, I know, but stick with me. Newton looked at the world around him, the forests, the animals, the way nature constantly renewed itself through growth and decay. He realized that the universe wasn't just a dead machine made of clockwork parts. It was alive. There was some driving force, some invisible energy that made life happen. He believed this vegetable spirit was the spirit of life, and he thought this spirit was everywhere, even in rocks and metals. To the medieval and early modern mind, metals weren't dead things. They were similar to vegetation. They believed that metals actually grew inside the earth. So logically, if metals grow like plants, they must have a seed. Newton believed that if he could find this seed, the seed of gold, he could manipulate nature itself. This obsession actually led to one of his most famous scientific breakthroughs. Remember the prism experiment? We learn in school that Newton observed light entering a prism and discovered the color spectrum. Pure physics, right? Well, not exactly. Newton was fascinated by light because he believed it was connected to this vegetable spirit. He thought the power of light might be the physical manifestation of that invisible life force. So when he was staring at that rainbow on his wall, he wasn't just analyzing optics. He was looking for the active spirit of the universe. He was looking for the power that could turn base metals into gold. This brings us to the holy grail of alchemy, the Philosopher's Stone. Newton wasn't just a dabbler, he was obsessed. Among his private papers, researchers found more than 50,000 words written specifically about the manufacture of the Philosopher's Stone. Imagine that. The man who discovered gravity wrote a novella's worth of instructions on how to cook up a magical stone. He studied the old texts, going back 2,000 years to the Greeks and Egyptians. He read about the dark sun, or Sol Niger, a symbol of putrefaction and change. He studied the four elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and the three primes, mercury, sulfur, and salt. But Newton took it a step further. He didn't just want the ingredients, he wanted the essences. He believed that you needed special, pure forms of mercury and sulfur to make the reaction work. He spent nights in his laboratory, undoubtedly inhaling dangerous fumes, trying to pulverize, distill, and calcine these materials. He was trying to find the molecular structure of matter before we even had a word for molecule. And he wasn't working alone. He communicated with clandestine underground communities of alchemists. These were people frowned upon by the serious scientists of the day, but Newton didn't care. He needed their secrets, but why the secrecy? Why didn't he publish Newton's Guide to Magic? Partly it was fear. Alchemists had always been secretive, claiming they needed to keep this knowledge away from unworthy people who might use it for evil. But for Newton, it was also about protecting the truth. He believed that this knowledge was powerful, too powerful for the common man. He was chasing a dream that had captivated minds for centuries, from Geber in the 8th century to Roger Bacon in the 13th century. Newton was standing on the shoulders of these giants, trying to reach the ultimate prize, the stone that could heal all diseases and create limitless wealth. Of course, he never found it. As far as we know, he never turned lead into gold. But in his failure, he did something perhaps more important. By obsessively mixing, measuring, and testing these substances, he was helping to transition the world from the mystic art of alchemy to the hard science of chemistry. Isaac Newton died in 1727. He left behind a universe that was ordered, predictable, and governed by laws. He gave us the tools to understand the planets, the tides, and the motion of everything around us. But we do him a disservice when we ignore the fire that fueled him. He wasn't a boring rationalist. He was a man who looked at a piece of gold and saw a living, breathing spirit. He was a man who looked at the Bible and saw a code to the apocalypse. He was a man who believed that if he just worked hard enough, he could unlock the secrets of God. Newton's science and his magic were not enemies. They were born from the same desperate need to know the unknown. So, the next time you think of Isaac Newton, don't just picture the apple. Picture the furnace. Picture the last alchemist searching for the spirit in the stone.